Welcome back to Kindness Stories, the place where true acts of compassion and the power of resilience shine through every tale. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and join our family where we believe kindness can change lives in ways we never expect. Now, let's get into today's story. On the outskirts of a busy city, where glass skyscrapers pierced the clouds and fancy cars hummed along spotless rows, there was a forgotten corner, a crumbling bus stop with peeling paint and a rusty bench where a girl named Elsie sat every morning before school. She had a small backpack, too small for all the secrets it carried. She wore sneakers so worn out they looked like they might give up on her feet any second. But she walked with her chin up, even when everyone else looked down on her. Elsie didn't. Live in a house like the other kids at Franklin High, she didn't have a warm bed waiting for her at night or a fridge stocked with snacks and leftover pizza. Instead, she had her mother's old van parked behind an abandoned lot, hidden behind a tangle of overgrown weeds. That van was her bedroom, her living room, her closet, and sometimes her safe place when the world felt too cruel. Every morning, she brushed her hair in the tiny side mirror, wiping away the dew with her sleeve. She'd rub toothpaste on her teeth without water because there was none. And when her mom could spare a few coins, she'd buy a warm cup of cocoa at the gas station down the street, sipping it slowly so it would last until her stomach forgot it was empty. At Franklin High, students strutted down the halls in bright, white sneakers, some custom, some designer, but all spotless. They whispered and giggled, comparing new clothes, swapping stories about their weekend trips to the city mall. Elsie would tuck her feet beneath her desk, hoping no one would notice. The duct tape wrapped around her soles to keep the rain out. But high school kids are like hawks, they see weakness in an instant. It was Monday morning when it happened. Elsie was sitting alone at lunch, poking at her peanut butter sandwich that was 2 days old, when a shadow fell over her. She looked up into the grinning face of Carla Jensen, the self-proclaimed queen of Franklin High. Carla's shoes were the latest release from an expensive brand, so bright they practically glowed under the fluorescent cafeteria lights. Carla tilted her head, eyes narrowing at Elsie's shoes. "Oh my God, Elsie, are those trash bags on your feet?" Carla's voice rose, drawing attention from every table nearby. A couple of Carla's followers snickered behind her, covering their mouths dramatically. Elsie's face flushed crimson. She tried to tuck her feet under her chair, but Carla was faster. She grabbed the edge of Elsie's table, leaning down so close Elsie could smell the sweet perfume that clung to her collar. "Where'd you get them?" "The dumpster behind Walmart," Carla asked, her words dripping with mock concern. The cafeteria burst into laughter. A few kids pulled out their phones, snapping pictures of Elsie's shoes, the duct tape now peeling at the sides. Elsie's stomach twisted into knots, but she forced her eyes to the ground. She wouldn't cry, not here. One of Carla's sidekicks, a boy named Troy, leaned in, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, at least they're eco-friendly, right? Recycled trash for a trash girl." The laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls, but through the noise, Elsie did something that surprised everyone, even herself. She looked up at Carla, her eyes calm, voice steady. "Better trash on my feet than in my heart," she said softly. For a second, Carla's smile faltered. She wasn't used to her targets fighting back, but the moment passed, and Carla just rolled her eyes. "Whatever, homeless girl. Maybe if you begged harder, someone would buy you real shoes." With that, Carla turned, flipping her hair over her shoulder as she strutted away, her entourage following like obedient ducklings. Elsie sat frozen, the sting of humiliation crawling over her skin like ants. She wanted to run to the bathroom, lock herself in a stall, and cry until her eyes burned. But she didn't. She knew better. Tears were a luxury she couldn't afford right now. So she packed up her sandwich, shoved her books into her frayed backpack, and walked out of the cafeteria. Whispers and laughter trailed behind her, but she kept her head high. After school, Elsie trudged through the back alleys to the lot where her mother's van waited. She opened the creaky door, careful not to make too much noise in case her mother was resting. Her mother, once a nurse at the city hospital, now spent her days searching for work and her nights fighting off the cold. When her mom asked about school, Elsie lied. She said it was fine. She said she was making friends. She said she was okay. That night, as the city lights flickered in the distance, Elsie lay on the van's lumpy mattress, staring at the ceiling lined with stickers she'd collected from gas stations and old notebooks. She thought about her shoes. She thought about the kids who laughed. And then she thought about her father. Years ago, before the bills piled up and the eviction notices covered their windows, her father had been a designer. Not just any designer, he created shoes, clothes, accessories that graced runways in New York and Milan. People had paid thousands for his designs. But fame is a fickle friend. When the economy tanked, investors vanished, factories closed, and one rainy afternoon, her father didn't come home. Her mother never spoke about him, but Elsie remembered. She remembered his sketches, the smell of leather and glue, the way he let her trace patterns with chalk on scraps of fabric. As she lay there, an idea began to spark in her mind, small, fragile, but just enough to keep her warm through the night. The next day, Elsie rummaged through dumpsters behind thrift shops and craft stores. She found old jeans, broken belts, scraps of fabric too small for anyone else to want. She carried them in her backpack, hidden under her textbooks. Every night, she sat under the glow of a single battery-powered lamp in the van, stitching, gluing, cutting, remembering how her father's hands had worked. She taught herself to sew leather patches onto canvas, to reinforce soles with rubber from discarded tires. The first few tries were terrible. The stitches popped, the glue didn't hold, but she didn't give up. Weeks passed. The weather turned colder. Carla and her friends still sneered when they saw her. But Elsie kept her secret close. She wore her same duct-taped shoes to school, even though her hands were blistered from the hours she spent crafting something better. She didn't want to show anyone until they were perfect. One Friday morning, after a long night of final touches, Elsie stepped out of the van wearing her creation. They were sneakers, but not like any you'd see in a store. The base was sturdy denim, reinforced with leather from an old jacket. The soles were thick rubber, painted with a swirl of colors that danced like city lights in the rain. She'd stitched her initials in tiny gold thread on the heel, a tribute to her father, who had always signed his work. When she walked through the school gates, kids stared, not because her shoes were broken this time, but because they were different, unique. Carla noticed immediately. She narrowed her eyes, lips pursed in a smirk. She marched over, flanked by Troy and a few others. "Wow, Elsie," Carla sneered. "Did you find those in a dumpster too?" Elsie smiled. "Actually, I made them." Carla laughed, tossing her hair. "Sure you did. You expect us to believe you're some kind of designer now." A boy behind Carla leaned forward, curiosity winning over cruelty. "Wait, you made those? They look cool." Carla shot him a glare, but a few more kids gathered around, murmuring. Elsie felt her pulse quicken, but she stood her ground. "Yeah, I made them. I didn't have money to buy new ones, so I made my own. They're from scraps, stuff people threw away." Troy snorted. "So you're a trash artist now?" Elsie met his eyes. Better to turn trash into something beautiful than throw it away without trying. Carla crossed her arms, but the tide was shifting. The kids who once laughed at her shoes now leaned closer, inspecting the stitching, the hand-painted designs. One girl, Sasha, who'd always worn the latest trends, spoke up. "Could you make me a pair like that, but with purple?" Elsie blinked. "You want that?" Sasha shrugged, cheeks pink. "They're different, and no one else would have them." Carla scoffed. "You'd pay her for garbage shoes." Sasha tilted her head, her voice firm. "Better than paying $100 for the same shoes everyone else has." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Carla opened her mouth, but for once, she had no comeback. Elsie felt something warm bloom in her chest. She reached into her backpack and pulled